just days away. Again, I'll be doing coverage on Fox Business from 6 to 8 p.m. The president taking today off at Camp David, tomorrow off at Camp David, I think Wednesday off at Camp David. So, Senator, the president seems to be in heavy-duty prep for a reset on his presidency.
David, I love your show. It's like a box of chocolates. You never know what you're going to get. A squared plus B squared equals C squared. Pythagorean theorem, State of the Union. I love all of it. So, listen, I think the State of the Union is going to be a big nothing burger. November is the final day for Joe Biden. It seems like it's tomorrow. Americans know that he's created this open southern border that's given us 10 million illegal immigrants into this country. They're seeing 300 Americans die every day from fentanyl poisoning. Human trafficking is exploding. They've seen his national security policies fail. Our enemies don't respect us, let alone afraid of us. His economic policies fail. You know what it reminds me of, David? I thought of this when Joe Biden was on the border. Do you remember the Truman Show with Jim Carrey, as long as we're going off on tangents here, where they would set Jim Carrey up and make him think everything was perfect? They followed Truman's world. And that's what happens. Joe Biden goes to the border. They tell him it's under control. They stage it. They tell him the economy's fine. And he believes it. But he's going to spend the whole State of the Union blaming Republicans for the crisis he's created, and then asking the Americans for more money to solve his crisis. Something like that's what I expect you're going to see.
Yeah, I see more of a message in, and I don't know if you and I have talked about it, but I actually would like to see a true State of the Union, regardless of president, as to where we are factually. But that is no longer the case. It's kind of a marketing speech to reset, to set the stage for the narrative to come on the U.S.-Mexico border. Let's focus there for a moment. In the last 3 days, I believe, we've seen somewhere north of 21,000 known encounters. There was a mass casualty event at the U.S.-Mexico border. That didn't really get a lot of news. We had 10 illegal aliens who fell from a border wall in California on Saturday. Fire department declared that a mass casualty incident. Border Patrol agents sought, additional resources and help. We have the internal criminal issues. We have Denver, Colorado, now crying Uncle Joe because they can't handle their sanctuary city status and more. And yet we're supposed to believe that Alejandro Mayorkas was right about operationally secure, and Republicans are to blame for the 91 executive orders that Biden didn't need when he had existing law. How do you get past Americans seeing those things, or does he?
They can't. He owns this problem. That's why America's number one concern in this presidential election is their safety and security, this open border. David, what I'm seeing across Kansas now is an explosion of human trafficking. Wherever you've seen drug trafficking from the cartel, you're seeing human trafficking now explode as well. Introduced to America the term Chinese triad, which I knew nothing about a month ago, but we did 3 human trafficking roundtables, sheriffs, highway patrolmen, local police, the Kansas Bureau investigation, and the Chinese triad is the underground mafia of China. It's been around for hundreds of years. Their drug trafficking goes back to Chairman Mao, where the CCP labs have been making for decades now the methamphetamine precursors, now the fentanyl precursors. The Chinese triad smuggles it into the cartel in Mexico, and then it, of course, comes to our borders. Now they're backfilling that with human trafficking. We have more massage parlors now than we do Starbucks cafes across the country. These massage parlors is the base of human trafficking. Go to your point in Denver, Colorado. The other part of this puzzle is the Chinese triad is intimately involved in what they call weed farms. It's where they grow the marijuana. It's legal and illegal. So Denver has large amounts of those farms. So does Oklahoma. Kansas caught in the middle as they're transporting the marijuana, legal and illegal as well. And finally, the money laundering. The Chinese triad has basically cornered the money laundering market for for organized crime for the last decade. They now own that. So look out for the Chinese triad, part of this puzzle, the 40,000 Chinese nationals coming across the border. That's just a scratch of the surface.
An important part of this, Senator, and you discussed this over the weekend, others in the Republican conference in the House as well, is to understand the relationship between the Chinese triads, and you're right, they've been around for hundreds of years, longer than that in some form, and the relationship to Xi Jinping and the Chinese Communist Party that'll not only allows for that, but that the Mexican cartels are the junior partner in this relationship with the triads, and the evidence is there, but the action is not. We have the DEA, we have U.S. Marshals, we have the FBI, we have the Department of Justice, and in many ways the executive disconnected from the criminal element that is okay with the Chinese Communist Party because it degrades America with sex trafficking. Your point about the growth of the Chinese massage parlors, or in any way those arrangements. You talk about the gangs that are coming in, the fentanyl, the Glock switches that are being shipped here from China that are used to turn weapons into more dangerous weapons, and yet nothing seems to be done about this.
Yeah, David, I don't have an explanation. Like I said, this is just exploding across the state of Kansas. I did not know what the Chinese triad was, but thank goodness for my local law enforcement officers. The intimacy of the CCP, the Chinese triad, and the cartel cannot be overstated. And I'm so naive. Americans are so naive, but these folks see no line between legal and illegal. This is no different to the CCP than Kansas farmers growing wheat. This is just business to them, business as usual. The cartel even has a presence in Mexico now. I want to just retrace the human trafficking part of this. So let's say folks are coming from China that are being trafficked here, this direction. They go to Turkey for whatever reason. Then they go to Colombia. Colombia does not require a passport. So Chinese triad has something called snakeheads, moving these people from Turkey to Colombia. They take them across the Darien Strait and hand them over to the coyotes, the cartel coyotes in Mexico. And then they bring them across the border, and then they enter into either the human trafficking or sex trafficking. They send them to the marijuana farms. They send them to run the massage parlors. They promise them, though, they entrap them. Somewhere probably about that Darien Gap, they entrap them. They promise them come to the land of fruit and honey, and they get to the Darien Gap, and they're vulnerable, and they say, okay, if you want to get the rest away, this is what you got to do. And they basically become indentured servants once they get here. The Chinese triad is very complicated. They don't want violence, so they stay underneath the radar. They want the cartel to do all the dirty work. So I think the reason we don't see the Chinese triad, they do not want guns going off. They want the cartel doing all that work. But thank goodness our Kansas Bureau of Investigation, the Highway Patrol sheriff's officers, they're onto it. And we'll try our best to push them out of Kansas, but that's just going to push them into other states.
Well, Senator, we need to not just keep an eye on this, but the local law enforcement is more likely to do something, as in state-based law enforcement and the agencies cooperating, because the Biden administration, the Department of Justice, Merrick Garland's more concerned about voter ID issues being suppressive to voting than he is about international threats that are killing hundreds of thousands of Americans, destroying millions of lives.
Yeah, it's that simple. Again, this is a crisis created by Joe Biden's policies, and now they're going to go back to the State of the Union and say, send us more money. If we only had more money, it would solve all our problems. If we had new laws, it would solve our problems. But as you have implied and on your show multiple times, the president has the authority, the Justice Department has the authority to stop the problem, but it starts right there at the border. These 10 million people that have crossed the border in the last 3 years, though, will haunt America for decades to come.
Senator Roger Marshall from the state of Kansas. Senator, thank you.